Welcome to Empowered Mind. Thanks for joining us. At Empowered Mind, we're all about empowering women and helping women to feel their best and do their best and just live their best life in general. And one very important part of that is communication. And today we're excited. We have a communications expert with us here, and we're going to be talking to her about how you can get empowered by doing better with your communication. So, without further ado, our guest is Karen Laos. And Karen, we would love for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Crystal. And thank you, Deanne. Well, I'm excited to be here. And just to give some orientation, I am in San Francisco and I absolutely love words. I'm obsessed with communication and the impact that our words can make on others, especially the spoken word. So essentially, just to give you a little bit of background, I've been in the corporate world for over 20 years now, left in July to focus 100% on doing my own thing. So I've always been entrepreneurial in nature. And I really believe for anybody listening, if you have a dream, if there's something that you want to go after it. Follow your heart, follow your gut. That's really what it's all about. And for too many years, I didn't do that. And I had a hard time with speaking up in certain situations, primarily even in my senior leadership roles. I mean, I was flying all over the world for Google and Netflix and various big brands. And yet I still had some hesitation speaking up when it came to the people in my circle around the leadership table. I was fine with clients, but there was something around the self-doubt and the perfectionism and the fear of being judged and wanting to be accepted and all of these things that I have seen over and over again trip us up as women. And I want to help that stop.
I absolutely love that because me and Karen already had a conversation about the little things, and Crystal is so big on this is the full circle of everything, guys. So Crystal is very big on breaking goals into small, tiny, little chunk size work.
Yeah.
And I was talking with Karen about, sometimes the shift is just a small shift, this small adjustment, and things can become better. And that's how you think too. Like sometimes you don't have to make these big, gigantic transformations. It's the small things that count. And I thought that was a beautiful point that you brought up. I wanted you to tell people how can they make maybe just one small change, for the week that's going to help them to take their power back and communicate in a clear manner.
Fabulous. Yes. Well, I'm obsessed with our voice because our voice, out of all the things that I coach people on from a nonverbal or, well, vocal perspective, essentially how we come across, that is the most nuanced. There's things like hand gestures and facial expressions and posture and all of these areas, but the voice is the one that's the most nuanced. So let me get into more detail.
Okay.
The first thing I would recommend always, this is overall, record yourself. Record yourself so you have awareness around how you come across and how you sound, whether you have audio capability or video. I'd always recommend video so you can see both. But even when you have video, I would recommend that at times you look away from the video and you just listen so you can isolate your voice. So starting there will give you an awareness. Now, one of the tips, primarily as women, is to speak with conviction. And there's two ways I'd recommend doing that. One is just simply projecting your volume, speaking louder, but speaking with loudness, not this up here. Because sometimes I'll tell people, hey, work on your projection. Let's do a recording and see how you sound. And then sometimes we talk louder, but it comes from our voice, or our throat, as opposed to the diaphragm. So for anybody listening that has had any vocal training, the diaphragm is that wonderful muscle. Well, for those of you that haven't, that muscle by your stomach, which is where we can get some wonderful strength from. Because what we need, particularly as women, is to come across with more strength. You've got it in you, but it's a matter of showing that on the outside, because I feel like that's one of the biggest missed opportunities, that you might have some incredible female expert, but she doesn't get the job or she doesn't get the business because of just a simple thing like how we come across. So that voice can make a huge difference. One other thing with your voice. So one is projection, just to review. And then the other one is to speak with a declarative tone. And what I mean by that is to avoid upspeak. It sounds like we don't know what we're talking about when it's really a statement, but we act like it's a question. So this happens a lot with women. And for better or worse, Kim Kardashian made it pretty popular, but it is going to kill your vocal cords and it's going to kill your credibility if you do that over time. So think about ending your statements with a period, just like you would punctuate in an email. It's the same thing. Just think about the period at the end of the sentence rather than going up.
Wow, that is awesome. Awesome
Yes.
advice. So for someone who may be in that situation right now, just in corporate, and they are wanting to do better and wanting to get promotions and wanting to move maybe to a new job, or maybe they want to leave, and start something new like you did. Um, what have you found to be those top two reasons why they're scared, and how do you think that they can overcome it right now so they can do better?
Well, I'd say that one of them is imposter syndrome, where we don't feel good enough, or we feel like, well, who am I to be here? And the other one is, I mean, there's some gray areas, or they cross over each other, but I'd say the other one is fear of judgment. If I say the wrong thing, and at the bottom line, the root of that is not feeling accepted and essentially feeling rejected. So those are a couple of things that just I want to normalize that, by the way, because all of us at one point or another, I don't think you can be human without feeling one of those things at one point or another, because we all have those things. Now, how to overcome that so that you can speak up, you can be seen as an influential leader. One of the ways is, number one, you've got to have positive self-talk. We are wired to speak negatively about ourselves, or we have this inner critic. And there's something powerful about, number one, starting with what is the fear that I have, and then naming it. I actually recommend, as an exercise with my clients, something called a fear script, where you write down, like a script, what is fear saying? So maybe it's, who am I to be in this room with all these amazing experts? Well, then you start being yourself, writing back to it. And when you can keep having this dialogue going, and I do think there's a power in actually writing it down, that when you write it and you start thinking through it, that you can start getting to the why behind it. And you can also start seeing that fear can actually be something that's separate from you. Meaning, I know it's still part of you, but if you can look at it differently, that can take away some of its power. And then the other thing that I like to do is a fear, what I would call naming your inner critic. So mine's name is Gertrude, and
Oh, I like that name.
she's tall and skinny with gray hair, long gray hair that's all put up in a bun, and her glasses are halfway down her nose, and she has a clipboard, and she's always judging me. So here's what's helpful, though. When you can see it almost like it's somebody else, you can just go, oh, Gertrude, it'll be fine. Relax. You can start talking to the inner critic.
I love that.
Thank you. So then what you want to do is have that positive self-talk.
Yeah.
And that's where I would come up with one or two things that makes you just feel amazing. Like, people are lucky to be working with me, or something like that. Or I am unstoppable. Having a couple of quick phrases that you could have prepared when those fear messages creep in, then that can help you in the moment when you walk into that meeting, or when you're in that meeting feeling intimidated, just to say to yourself, I am unstoppable, and people are lucky to hear from me. That can be a really helpful way to then jump in.
Do you find that there's a difference in mindset between women in different stages, whether they're single or married, or starting a new job or leaving a new job? How do you think that affects their mindset?
Sure. I think what I would say is, anytime there's a transition, there's often either excitement
Mm-hmm.
or nervousness, and sometimes it can be both. So I'll speak to that a little bit more. I think what happens sometimes when we are, let's say, I don't have kids, but let's say I hear, you hear so much about the depression that happens after, and that what is it, postpartum. This is where I'm gonna like not be good in the expertise area, but all I want to say is there might be times in your life that
Mhm.
are more succumbed to feeling down about yourself. Or sometimes, let's say on Clubhouse, for anybody that's on Clubhouse, and if you're not familiar with what that is, a social media app where you're in chat rooms talking with people around subjects. A lot of times people get on there and they get nervous when they otherwise wouldn't be. And this happened to me. About a week into Clubhouse, I was on with all of these big name public speakers, primarily men. And I have to admit, I was really disappointed in myself because I found myself tripping over my words and not feeling good enough. And so that was helpful though, because I hung up and I said, okay, I've still got work to do and I've got to get past this. So part of it also is knowing those situations that you're in, whatever that transition might be for you, and being aware. It really does come back to self-awareness. Okay, what do I need? And then really going after, what do you need to feel more prepared or to feel more confident and more empowered in this situation? So that's what I would say about that in general. Oh, I also wanted to say about excitement and nervousness that physiologically there's no difference.
Yes.
So that's really great to be mindful of. And many people listening may already know that. But the way to trick your brain, instead of the self-talk of, oh, I'm so nervous, I'm so anxious, just say, I'm so excited.
That's definitely good.
I love it. I think that I feel like it works, and I feel like that's so important. That's such good advice to just kind of, first of all, become self-aware by figuring out what am I afraid of? What's
Yes.
causing fear right now? And
Mhm.
now that I'm scared, okay, let me talk to the critic right now and just say, hey, listen, not right now. It's all good. Everything is good. We're going to be fine. And to get past it, because I do feel like a lot of times we get stuck right there. You can really get stuck and it's hard to move past it.
Mm.
And I think that I love the advice of just kind of realizing where you are and helping yourself to get past it. What do you think are some um, good ways or good resources for people to use to help build that confidence and find that voice?
One of the things I know I've said it already, but the simple act of recording yourself and then watching it back. And that's also the thing. A lot of times we are so afraid to watch it back. I don't like to watch myself either, but
Yeah.
I force myself so that I can see that. From a resource perspective, if we're thinking about books, for example, I would highly recommend the book Communicate to Influence by Ben and Kelly Decker. They have great tips around how you come across, as well as how to deliver a message that sticks in people's minds.
Okay.
The other one too, I know that there's a lot of good videos out there by Chip and Dan Heath. They are also best-selling authors. They're brothers. And I used to work with them personally when I actually worked for Decker Communications, which is where Ben and Kelly are from. And Chip and Dan Heath are fantastic. They talk about how do you make a message stick, and what, like, for example, urban legends became kind of obsessed with urban legends because they said, why is it that urban legends stick sometimes for years, but our general corporate marketing campaigns don't stick very much? So they came up with a framework to test whether an idea will stick in your mind or not. And I would always recommend watching TED Talks, especially Brene Brown. She is my number one. I would recommend her for anything at all related to leadership, communication, and her style is just so wonderfully relatable.
Yeah.
I love Brene Brown. I've read some of her books and listened to some of her things, and it always feels like she's very vulnerable and honest, and
Yes,
that doesn't always happen with self-help books per se. So I love that
exactly.
recommendation.
Yeah, yeah.
What is one thing that someone in general can implement today
All
to
right.
start the journey of finding their voice?
Hmm. That is such a good one. I mean, I feel like there's so much packed into that. I think for me, there's emotion attached for me because I know what it was like to feel like I wasn't truly being myself on the outside. And if there's anyone listening to this that feels like you're not able to be yourself, or you're trying to be something different because maybe your boss likes it this way, or somebody else, your mom or your sister or brother. I mean, there's so many times that we're out in the world trying to please other people when the person we should be most concerned about is us and what we need. And I'd say that the biggest mistake that women make is playing small.
Mm.
And yeah, there's definitely emotion there for me because it's my mission to help women be their most empowered self. And any way that we can do that, I want to encourage anybody to do that. So go after, and maybe even I shouldn't say maybe, my biggest suggestion would be to go after the thing that you fear the most. And even ask yourself, what if I knew that I would be 100% accepted and loved for who I am, what would I do in this moment? And even if you have people who don't accept you, or they don't like you, or whatever, it doesn't matter, because frankly, what other people think of us is none of our business.
Ooh.
So remembering that we are meant to be who we are meant to be, and every one of us has a unique and powerful story that is meant to be shared in the world. Someone somewhere needs to hear yours. Absolutely. Yes. And if we remember the acronym of FEAR, which is false evidence appearing real, that's such a good reminder that fear is made up in our head.
Yeah.
And when we take that baby step, for example, even just the simple act of interjecting at a meeting, don't say, I'm sorry, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Just do it and say, here's what I think. Hey, everybody, I'd like to interject, or I'm going to interject. And by the way, this is another thing you guys asked about this week. What could you do?
Yeah.
When you start saying, I'm sorry, change it to I'm sexy.
Love it.
Because if you start training your brain, no, I'm not sorry, I'm sexy.
Yeah.
That could be a fun way to shift
Be
up.
a fun way. That will definitely bring people to pay attention to what you're saying. Like, listen up here.
Like, I'm learning that it's important for you to, if you need to say something, get in there, say it real quick. You know, like you said, you have this 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds to make an impression before people start thinking about something else or moving on, just because, like you said, we're stimulated. So I think when I think about our audience listening, you know, what is that 30-second thing that you need to say that's important to you, that you're passionate about, and get it out, so that, like, you know, the other 5-10 minutes, even if someone isn't listening, they remember
Yeah,
whatever it is that you needed to say in that 30 seconds. And I think for me, I'm thinking about it like, when I meet somebody, if I have a minute, what am I going to say in that first 30 seconds that's going to be meaningful to them? Because like you said, you know, you could give somebody a 20-minute story, but they only remember like 1 minute of whatever is important. So
exactly. And
I,
that's a good rule of thumb, what you said there, just about the time perspective, because a lot of times people ask, well, how much time do I have, or what? And I always tell people, yeah, like 30 seconds to a minute is when, well, really after about a minute, people start tuning out. But I would even say, get that point out within your first 10 or 15 seconds. And at least come across like you're confident. Because you know how it is. Sometimes women will be tentative and they'll go, could I, excuse me, I'd like to interject. And just by that time, people now have tuned you out anyway. So it really is both the message itself as well as how you're saying it.
mhm.
And one other thing that I will add from for a formula for anybody that's interested in this, a lot of people are stuck when somebody asks, tell me about yourself. So think about three things. It's in an acronym, PPU: personal, professional, unique. Say something personal. So Hi, my name is Karen, and I'm from Minneapolis originally, but now I live in San Francisco. I'm a professional. I'm a communication expert, and I've been in the corporate world forever, but now started my own thing. And something unique about me is that I love adventure. And an example of that is that I rented an apartment in Manhattan for a month just because I wanted to try living there. So something like that.
Yeah.
That might even be a little bit long, but if you can think, if those could be potential anchors for you, what could you say personally, professionally, and then unique?
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. So thank you so much, Karen, for taking the time to really kind of teach us on small ways and big ways that we can communicate in a better manner. And so we really appreciate that here at Empowered Mind. We'd love for you to let us know how we can get in contact with you. Say if someone's looking for a communications expert or a leadership coach, how do we get in touch with you?
Sure. Well, thank you again to both of you for having me. I am most reachable on Instagram, which is Karen Laos Consulting. And also, I have a Facebook group that I would love to invite anybody to come join, and that is called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laos. I also have a podcast that was launched just a few weeks ago called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laos as well. So I'm all about confidence, and I'd love to see you in any of those places. And you can also reach out to me, just Karen@KarenLaos.com. I would welcome any questions or anything at all. Oh, and Clubhouse. How could I forget Clubhouse? Karen Laos. Exactly. I'm hosting rooms almost daily. So on confidence and communication. So I'd love to see you there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Karen.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, leave a comment, and subscribe for future videos. We'll see you in the next video.